What is up, and welcome to the Sunday Debrief podcast. Again, where we've been taking in this series, relationship goals, we've been taking the weekend message and just having a conversation with some great people around mission, all about what it looks like to live these things out in our real lives. We're trying to figure out how the message each and every week challenges how we think, changes how we live, helps us live more like Jesus. And it has been a blast so far. My name is Tommy. I am your host, but more importantly, I have two wonderful guests, longtime mission people and all around wonderful folks, Mark and Ruth Smith. Mark and Ruth, introduce yourselves.
I'm Ruth Smith. I've been married to Mark for 36 years. We have four kids. Oh my goodness. 4 kids and 6 grandkids right now.
Nice. Very nice. Mark, anything to add? Anything to fix? She get the facts right?
She got it. She got it all right, especially with the 4 kids. I'm Mark Smith, and we've been going to mission almost since it started. And of course, loving this church. And after being married to my wonderful wife for 36 years, it's such a blessing, and so excited to be here and share with you.
Yeah. And you guys have been longer than I have, actually. So
that would be true.
Well done. Congratulations on that. I've been here what feels like an eternity. So,
but in a good way.
Yes, a really good way. Exactly. So we're talking this week about having fun. And literally I was racking my brain trying to figure out who I wanted to invite. There are plenty of fun people out there, but especially after seeing kind of where Jen was headed with the message and some of the things she was talking about. Our co-host last week, Lauren, my wife, I looked at her and was like, who do I invite? And she, without missing a beat, said, oh, invite Mark and Ruth. That's going to be fantastic. And I called them immediately. So I would love to hear from you guys, even just thoughts on the message, why fun feels important. Are you naturally fun people? Are you, you seem to just be filled with joy wherever you go. That's something that I've always felt about you. And it's not this outrageous joy, like a Jen Oaks joy, right? She brings just the party wherever she goes. But you guys just bring this quiet contentment and joy almost wherever you go. So is that natural for you? Has that always been the case? What is that about you? And how does that play a part in your spiritual lives?
Well, for me, the idea of joy and having fun and everything has come over, many, many decades of practice. And a lot of times, on the outside, we can easily put on the look of joy and that everything's okay. But stuff going on inside is tough. And we've all had those times for sure. But I would say the practice that we've done, and definitely myself, is kind of just looking back at what God has done for us and the many blessings and how unbelievably blessed we are. And then just being able to know that God's in control and relying on him. That automatically just brings a tremendous amount of joy and fun into our lives.
What does that look like for you in a practical sense? Is it just when things start going bad that you start doing that? Is that proactive for you both? How do you work that into your everyday lives in a way that makes that a reality for you and changes the inside so that you can live with joy and bring joy with you?
That's such a great question. It's not easy. I mean, it's a struggle for me every day. Just waking up, I gotta, think through, start doing kind of what Jen was saying. I have to think through the blessings that I have, and I have so many, but it's so easy for me to kind of get caught up in the day to day, somebody does wrong, or especially if they say something bad about my kids or whatever, mama lion, I come out and I'm just, so I can get myself worked up. Fortunately, I have a husband that is very calm and brings that to me. So I'm the high, low, crazy. And Mark is more the, what does that mean in the big scheme of things? I get kind of
yeah, he evens you out in a more natural way. Yeah. That's cool. I like that. Yeah. What things throw you off the most? I mean, you got Mama Lion, right? So there's that. What other kind of things do you what are you probably have those things where they're gonna peak the scales for you, and that's probably the thing you got to go, whoa, I need to step back and reset myself internally. What are those kinds of things for you that
the triggers
threaten to peak you? Yes, trigger you. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm not one that usually likes to be like center stage or anything like that. I'm more behind the scenes. I love behind the scenes work stuff. So even like today coming in and talking, I told Mark, like, this is not me. I don't like to do this. But, at the same time, it's okay. And he's always calm, like, we got this, it's just a conversation. And it's just, so it's just prepping my brain again, like all the way here, just praying like, okay,
But knowing that about yourself, that means you can do it in advance and not blow up afterward from all the stress.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's huge.
That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sense. Cool. Mark, what about you? What kind of things? Because you're the naturally calm one. You're the
I definitely can be at times. But for me, it's a lot of times turning on the news and then hearing stuff on the news. And for me, it's what I can get caught up in is worrying about the future, which I think can definitely have an effect on me personally. And it's real quick to focus on what you hear on the news or the TV or somebody around you. That for me, dealing with the future and all of a sudden, having that weird feeling like, oh my gosh, how am I going to handle this, or how's that going to turn out? That's my challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I get caught up, especially even because I like thinking about big problems, because I like finding big solutions and big ideas. I like going all the way up there which is why I like the news, which is not always good for me. I just have to ask my wife. But I get all up in this like tizzy, I guess is the only word I could think of. But because of all the things going on, and then I realized this is a totally manufactured stress cycle. I didn't need any of this. It affects none of my life. That's a really big challenge for me to bring it back and go, no, this actually doesn't apply to me at all. Or these people are really ruining the world. And you're like, I don't know any of those people. They're not ruining my world.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really challenging for me too. But I think it's helpful to know like what those triggers are, so you can, because we can't stay away from them. And so it feels like if we know what they are, then we can either proactively ready ourselves for them or stay away from them when possible and not engage. That makes a lot of sense. One of the things that was just, and this is like a consistent thing for me, when Jen talked about Paul writing, I didn't write the verse, but to one of the churches in the New Testament. She talked about how he made a command to choose joy, rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again, rejoice. And this idea that happiness and joy aren't the same, that always really strikes me. What is that? I mean, is this idea of choosing joy for you, is it because it's a command? How does that change how you think about happiness or joy? Does that challenge you? Or is that maybe how you have made this a priority? What does that change for you, knowing that happiness and joy are not the same and that joy is actually a command that we have?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I know for me, like growing up, I always wanted to be happy. Like I put the two together, because it just seemed to go together. But I thought it was great hearing Jen say that, and about where, he was when he was writing these words, that he was, it hit me so hard. And I've read it a million times and I know it, but hearing it again, that he was in prison was like, that's right. He wasn't in a great situation at all. And that night, just going to bed last night and just thinking it through, it just reminded me that, there's going to be tough times and there's probably more coming. But for me, like, I just got to remember where I'm finding my joy and how I'm projecting that, even because I know my kids and grandkids are watching, and I got to be careful to not mask and not just be happy, like giddy happy, like actually, and always joking, like to know that there's an inner joy.
Yeah.
I've seen that in, I don't know if it's okay to say out a name, but Debbie Bro, like when I met her, I got a chance to go to lunch with her, and just the way she talks and just the way she is, she's got this inner joy about her. That's so infectious.
That's so true. Yeah. That's really interesting. You brought up your kids. So often I feel like when I think about it wrongly, at least I think the commands of Scripture are like, do this because God deserves this. I think it's easy to think God is commanding us to do something because He wants us to take great joy in Him. And while that is totally true, and there's a relational benefit there, and then I'm like, okay, well, next level, no, He wants me to choose joy because He loves me enough to make sure that I'm choosing joy and not settling for material happiness or fleeting happiness. I'm like, okay, well, it's actually because He loves me. But what you just said seems like He's actually saying, I need you to choose joy because somebody else is watching you. And somebody else is going to learn about the entire world and what's important and what is good and what is lasting because of how you live. And so He's telling me to choose joy because my kids are watching me and because He loves my kids. And I'm their primary picture of what a life of values looks like. So I get to choose what they see. That's really interesting.
Right.
So it's a huge legacy type effect on the command to choose joy, not just because He loves me. Well, yeah, but because He loves my kids too. And they need that from me. I had to talk that out because that was new for me. That was very helpful. Thank you, Ruth. Appreciate that. So Jen gave us a few ideas, like really specific stuff that I thought were super helpful because most of the things when it comes to joy and even happiness, she was right. Like it's the 101 date ideas. And I would need those, especially this last year. I needed every blog post that was like how to do fun things when all the fun things are unavailable. That's helpful, really helpful. But she gave us the really big things like finding fun, which meant finding a mission, and filling up. Those are two of the big ones that are just huge, big blocks. And I would love to know what those have looked like for you, finding a mission. You guys have been around church and following Jesus for a long time. What seasons of your life have you been most obviously on mission? What kind of decisions have helped you live on mission? And what has that done for your lives of joy for both of you and for your whole family?
Yeah, lots of seasons in life, and being on mission for us, I think, took its peak and everything when we started going to mission. There you go. And for us, our kind of mission is that we've picked up on that we learned here from Mike is the do for one that what you wish you could do for everyone. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of been our theme. Being involved as foster parents is our way to respond to that. Mm-hmm. We can't help every kid out there, but mm-hmm. we can help one kid. Yeah. And then even though in all the challenges, because that's not always an easy thing, mm-hmm. but to know that you're affecting a life is very joyful. It brings unbelievable, immeasurable joy mm-hmm. and happiness and contentment, both into, I think, our individual selves as well as our marriage and our whole family. Mm-hmm. Our kids are always involved as well. Yeah. Has you
because you have added complexity to, you started fostering, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you started your life as a foster family once your kids were grown up, right? Like your kids were out.
Our youngest at the time was 15.
Okay. So close.
But
yeah.
Well, we wanted to wait just till they could understand. For us, that was our choice. But
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And I grew up with my parents being foster parents, and it is fun. I just got to throw this out there. Now one of our daughters is a foster parent, and it's so cool. Yeah. Like you can just see that they see, that mission statement that we've had to see it coming through. And the other kids, like Mark said, is like totally involved with the kids that we've had mm-hmm. when they walk in, they're ours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody.
That's amazing. So it's drawn your family because you two chose to live on mission. It has drawn your entire family closer and passed on the mission as well. That's really exciting. What other kind of things when it comes to even filling up, like how has filling up made a difference for you? And are you doing that right now? What's it looked like over the last year, which has been a hard one, it feels like, to stay filled up?
Yeah, as far as like what type of mission, what have we been doing? Is that what you're asking?
Well, not even just finding a mission, but like filling up, like replenishing your souls, having a tank to draw from so that the those triggers even that we talked about. I think for me, knowing when the tank is full, you know, the thing that should frustrate me is like, meh, oh, well, that's okay. Tank's empty and it destroys me.
Yeah.
But if the tank's full, it doesn't. So yeah, Mark, you
you know, one thing is it's making right choices. And we have done foster care for a long time. And we ended up getting a 16-and-a-half-year-old boy with autism, and great kid. And he ended up being with us for a year and a half until he turned 18 and went to grandma and grandpa. And it brought joy to our lives. We were fulfilling our mission, but it also wore us out.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, we have lots of grandkids that we need to focus on for just a little bit. Let's take a break. And so sometimes knowing when to step back and relax and replenish. And actually just yesterday we were kind of looking and talking to each other about, are we ready to take in another kid now? And so that's now the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. So really just having consistent conversations between the two of you, like snapshot of health. How are we doing? What are our levels like? What do we need? And then making decisions based on that.
Yeah. It's so important. I mean, yesterday normally we do it around a fire pit at night, but yesterday we were actually sitting around the fire pit during the day, and Carson was playing and having a good time. And it really makes a difference for me at least, to get away from TV and social media and all that stuff, just leave it inside or whatever. And so you sit out there and just, you know, have those conversations. Cause I think the hardest time in my life, or like when I start feeling, like you said, empty or frustrated or whatever, is when we don't have conversations, you know, like we'll go for a couple of weeks or whatever. And all of a sudden I feel that distance. And it's funny. It's not only from Mark, but also from God in a sense, because not that he is that, but there's that relationship that he put into us. And so if we're not having those conversations, I just feel disconnected.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my thing. So it's great when we have those, and I can just kind of get redirected and refocused. And, you know, it all went along with the message yesterday, and it was great because it was like, what is our mission? What are we doing? Where are we at?
Yeah. That's awesome. So you suggest that I get a fire pit. Just kidding. I love my fire pit more than anything. So last thing I think that was so helpful is putting umbrellas of grace into this idea of having fun, because the spaces that we create, and honestly, the fire pit sounds like one of those places for you guys.
Fire pits are a gift from God.
Really, they are. I feel that so strongly. But this idea that if we can create grace-filled environments and make sure that the places we have control over, especially our homes and maybe our tightest circles of relationships, but if we can extend grace first and primarily, then it'll change how we live with joy, because joy is just inaccessible if there's no grace. I can't take a misstep. I can't take a risk. I can't do anything if there's no grace. So what threatens the grace in your household and in your relationship? What threatens the umbrella of grace the most for you? Skip right to the negative.
It's you know, grace should be a prerequisite for judgment. And it's, you know, for me, it's judgment to immediately cast judgment based on the outward expression or action or facial expression or body language or anything else. You immediately can easily judge a person rather than stopping and having grace and then trying to find out what is actually going on inside. And that, because that's what matters.
Yeah. Now, Ruth, when was the last time that Mark judged you? I'm just kidding. Don't tell me that. Probably never.
That hasn't been since this morning.
Between the two of you. Hey, that's pretty good. That's a couple hours. What about you, Ruth? How have you created that with your kids? Like, because you also you have to discipline your children and show right and wrong. Like, how do you balance grace and even discipline with kids and with each other? Pick anything really, but
yeah, boy, I get it wrong a lot. And when I do, which my kids can all attest to, it's going back and saying, I'm sorry. And just talking through it with them, like whatever it is that my words or the way I responded was so wrong. And it's hard to, you know, it's gotten easier because I have to say I'm sorry a lot, but No, it just, what it does though, is when I've said hurtful things, not knowing, and then asking for forgiveness, because then I realize, what it was and how it was perceived.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, which we've been talking about is, we're raising Carson, and with Down syndrome. And it's so easy, especially with a kid who's special like him, because his outward expressions are not that of a typical child. Mm-hmm. And so he responds in a lot of ways because of the way that he is, which is so special. And it's so easy after raising 3 other kids, typical kids, that we want to respond in the same way. And it's that outward expression that he's doing. And it's, I mean, man, you want to learn patience. That's, that's just what you have to do. And you have to extend that umbrella of grace because he responds differently. And we just haven't been used to it. And so he's taught us a lot about that.
Wait, you got to give an example. He said something under his breath the other day, because Carson will tell you exactly what's on his mind. Like, it doesn't, there's no filter. Like if you think back, a lot of kids will say it in their minds, what they think about you as a parent. And he did the other day, he said, "Stupid mom." And I heard it and I was like, what? And Mark brought up, our kids probably thought that a lot, when I did something, but they don't say it, but he said it. Yeah. And so it's hard to do that response where it's like, okay, just because we didn't hear it from the other kids didn't mean they didn't think it. And finding grace in that's, just knowing. And I'm so glad that Mark brought that up, because I was having a difficult time with that stuff, and he, so.
God, no, that makes so much sense. Almost like, seems like a gift that he actually did say it out loud, so you could have a conversation about
I know where I stand. No.
Right.
But he flips it, just to be clear, he flips it very quickly and says he's sorry. And, we work through it. But it is great, because I actually do get to work through it with the other ones that probably didn't know it and just kept moving on.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think even just going back to what you said about asking for forgiveness, and that not even... I think it would make sense to think that to create an atmosphere of grace in my house, I need to forgive quickly. Well, that's true, but you went straight to creating a grace-filled home meant asking for forgiveness, which makes total sense, because even we started doing that with our kids also, like almost getting excited, like finally I did something wrong, but like, oh, that was obviously like I overreacted. I didn't listen. I often don't listen too quickly enough. And so that happens plenty now. But, and then as soon as Olivia, our 5-year-old, was old enough to have it really make sense, and even before it really made sense to her, we started being really clear, like, hey, I did this. I think it hurt you this way. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. I should never have done that. I like just really going way over this thing. And really it was this like totally benign nothing, but she thought it was the end of the world. So that, to be fair, it was the end of the world for her, but it changed so much about the way that she asked for forgiveness. I mean, she does the same thing to us now, because she's like, oh, that's what we do. And that was amazing, but we didn't have to teach her to do it. We just had to do it.
Right. Show her by example. Yeah.
It was amazing. That was like a game changer for us. What, when you think about having fun and your lives right now, your marriage, what's one thing that you're like, especially after hearing this, maybe this weekend, and all the different specific things, but just in general, bringing a joyful person to any situation, all of that, where do you want to bring a more joyful person in your lives right now? And how, like, what might be a practical way that you're doing that this week? Because that's always kind of where we end up, right? It's like, great ideas, great thoughts, great stories, but like, what's a thing that I can do? Because I'm not going to change my whole entire life this week, most likely. But I might change one thing that over time will change the course of my life. So like, what's one thing or an area that you're like, I haven't been applying this here. I need to bring that kind of person to there. What's one thing that you want to do this week? For me, probably the biggest takeaway from Jen's talk, which was just absolutely awesome,
she hit it out of the ballpark. But was actually kind of her opening statement, talking about her and TD, packing up everything, leaving a house that they owned, moving to California to do church, getting here knowing that in their minds they would never own a house, because that's absolutely, I think she used the word impossible for them to be able to buy a house. And then the fact that God worked it out, and it was truly a great story and awesome how God made it happen, that they were able to own a home. And for me, I need to continually work on knowing that God's in the business of doing the impossible. And it usually comes at the time you don't think it's going to come. And what is it they say around here is he never comes early, he never comes late, but he always comes on time.
Right on time, yeah.
And just the fact of hearing her testimony on what God did in their lives on that. And that is that brings an inner joy that just is I'm sure that's just unbelievable, is when you're able to see God work in your own life personally, and not just hearing the story from somebody else. Yeah. And so that's a big takeaway for me.
That's awesome.
Say your question one more time.
Yeah. What's like one thing that you want to do this week to bring a more joyful person to maybe all the areas of your life, or like an area specifically where you're like, yeah, I don't really bring that person there.
Yeah.
I've not been applying that there.
No, I think, one area that I know I've need to work on, and it's a continual thing, but when, Mark wants to do something or something comes up like this, my immediate response is no. And it's changing that to yes, and then praying through it, just so because I know it's like a fun sucker, a joy sucker, when you're one that always has to say that your immediate response is no, and just because it's fear that comes in my heart real fast, like I just and it's that's probably what continue to work on it, but that's my big takeaway, is that I need to in order I don't want to steal somebody else's joy and excitement, but joy as far as what fills them up. By being the naysayer, I want to change that and say the yes.
Lead with the yes, and then figure out the conditions of the yes, maybe to customize them a little bit.
But it's better to say yes and then say, so what did you mean by that? But I think then at least it opens a door for conversation. If I say no, it closes a door. And then I have to work my way around to try to reopen that door that I've just slammed shut.
Right, because it slams shut a door in the person's heart too. It's like, whoa, why?
Like they make a suggestion and I say no, and then and Mark has to deal with that. Like, well, no, this is what I meant, and then it's like, oh, yeah, that sounds fantastic, but
I don't trust you anymore.
Yeah, right. And so that's I realize that's a big thing for me. That's
really good. Mine is similar. I need to remember never to let myself off the hook on these. I have a thing too. My thing is similar in that I often process through the negative, and I most often do it out loud. And so, especially Lauren will bring something up and I care about it deeply. And so what I'm going to do is process out loud through the negative. And she's like, I wanted your support, not your opinion.
Right.
Oh, I should always start with support and then go to opinion if asked. And I don't do that and I don't know if maybe that's interesting. I wonder if that's just because I'm an external processor. Maybe I think that my opinion's really good and important, and there's probably a little bit of both in there. So
us guys, we like to fix things.
Yeah, it's really hard not to, especially when it's like, this is clearly, but then I'm like, I don't even know the real problem because I haven't listened enough. And so, for me, it's starting with questions instead of starting with answers, and starting with support instead of opinion, because that creates, I think, the grace, because I want to communicate above anything else. Like, I'm for you, whatever the thing is, I'm just for you. And I trust you enough to, especially in our marriage, like I don't have to trust everybody this much, but I trust you enough that where you say God is speaking or leading or pushing, like I just trust that that's true, and we'll figure it out together. But extending that trust, it's not going to hurt me, because we'll figure it out together if we need to, and maybe it's a little off or whatever. But I need to lead with that, and that's an umbrella of grace thing for me, and that's great. Well, this is fun. Thank you. Oh, hey, look at that. This was very fun. I didn't actually do that on purpose, but thank you guys for bringing joy to wherever you go. Honestly, it's been so helpful for me. And I think that joy for you guys has led to just incredible generosity also. And in so many ways of time and of energy and of skills that you bring to the table, all those things. Like you guys are my favorite people. So thank you for bringing joy wherever you go and doing what you do. For everybody else too, listening, just another reminder that what we want this to be is sort of a model for what conversations about what we're learning every single week can look like. And so this conversation isn't done until you've had your own. So make sure to check out the Sunday Conversation Guide in the description below. That's a helpful guide for just asking some different questions, whether it's in the car, on a trip with your kids, whether it's at the dinner table. Just dropping some of these questions in is a chance to have really meaningful discussions, or whether it's with a friend that is around mission or is not. Like honestly, a lot of these questions and a lot of these conversations can be great ways to interact with people that maybe don't even like church or trust God or anything, but they're great ways to have significant conversations. So make sure you do that. Check out that Sunday Conversation Guide. Let us know what you think about these conversations. Let us know if they're helpful, what you want to hear more of, and how you want them to look. And other than that, we will catch you next time.